Good afternoon, everyone. Isn't this a lovely, lovely setting? Doesn't Myrtis know how to do it? First of all, I'm truly honored to be here to share this afternoon with you. What I've done is I've prepared two handouts for you. One is an outline. I'm not going to be able to cover all of these, some of the topics that I have here in depth because of the limitation of time, but I at least wanted them to be made available to you at least to consider as I go through it here. And I'll talk about the second one, which is a collection inventory sheet as we proceed. First of all, what is estate planning?
There are two sheets, and let me know if you don't have both.
We don't have that one.
Okay.
Alex, we need those
These over here. So I didn't realize it was all stacked. Does everybody have this sheet?
We need some over here.
Just let me know if you don't have this sheet. Please have another one.
Okay, one here.
Okay?
One for Louis.
All right, first of all, let me just begin by talking about, and I'm going to be very general in this regard. With regard to estate planning, a lot of people want to know, what is estate planning? Estate planning is basically the organizing and the plan for the management and the disposition of those things which you own solely by yourself. Because if you own it jointly with someone else, then you've already named a joint owner who will then receive it at your death. Or if you have if you don't own it jointly with them, or if you name them as a beneficiary, you've named someone as a beneficiary through a contract, such as with a bank, such as with an insurance policy. Your estate plan is basically those things which you will have the right to dispose of during at your death. I also like to always emphasize whenever I meet with a group of people that, for me personally, I think that having powers of attorneys are actually more important than having a will or having a trust. And the reason I say that is that when you pass away, hey, no one has to make sure that you have heat. No one has to make sure, that you get your medicine. None of those things. All they have to do is just sort of dispose of your remains, whether it be through cremation or whether they, find a suitable grave for you based on what you plan. All right? And your stuff will be taken care of. Hopefully it will be, you will have already put together a plan for what happens to it. But for you personally, there will be no more worry for you. And that's the reason I say that the power of attorney is more important, because the power of attorney basically is a document that authorizes someone else to manage and to deal with you physically as well as mentally. Well, they can't deal with you mentally, but to deal with in terms of your health care and your management of your property while you're living. And if you don't have someone in place and you don't have a document authorizing that person, then you're going to be subjected to the state authorities of the jurisdiction in which you live for them to appoint someone. And as we say, you will end up having a stranger running your affairs. Now, certainly one of your family members can always apply or petition to be that person, but it doesn't always work out that way, because in all states they require that this person would then have to post bond. And sometimes people, because of their own credit issues, aren't bondable. Okay? So I say that to say that please pay attention to making sure that you have something in place that manages your affairs in the event that you become incapacitated. Because as you well know that, people are living longer but not necessarily better in all cases. And that can happen. It's not a matter that when you get to be old, it happens to very young people. You can be involved in an accident today and be paralyzed or be in a coma for that matter. So you want to make sure that you have that taken care of. So I say that, and not only that, it also applies with regard to if something should happen to you. If you don't have anything in place, then people can't make gifts on your behalf because you haven't authorized any gifts to be made during your life. So it's very important, and we'll get to that with regard to the the subject that I'm here to talk about is in terms of gifting to, whether it be to museums, otherwise. So, as I state here, that if you don't have a plan, then you're going to be subjected to a guardianship or conservatorship of the jurisdiction in which you live. And I state here and give you a couple of things, some of the instruments. And then you also want to have an advance directive or living will in the event that you should be subjected to put on life support. Then you want to make it very clear to your loved ones what your desires are, whether you want to be kept on such life support. Because I've seen a lot of families really just be completely, well, wiped out financially, as well as just terrible relationships because they had, mixed feelings about what should be done. Whereas if you state what you want done, then whether they agree or not, win, lose, or draw, whatever you want, that's what will take place. Okay? So I'm going to move right on into gifting options. Of course, first of all, the gifting options that you have at death are you can make a bequest. A bequest is where you have either in a will or in a trust. You specifically state that you want a particular item, and we're talking basically in terms of tangibles here, who you want it to go to, or whether it be an organization or an institution. You can also look at the possibility of doing, a lot of people, they may do long-term loans to a institution during their life or for a specific period of time with the idea that it would then be a gift at their death. And a lot of them sort of, they do these loans so they can wait and see how this particular institution is going to handle their things. And if they're satisfied and feel pretty confident about it, then they will even do either during their lifetime or through their will or trust, then make that bequest at death. You can also, of course, I'm sure most of you already know about endowments. That's basically where you make a major cash gift to a institution, and then that institution then uses the income that is produced from that gift to whether they may make scholarships, they may provide grants, they may do internships, or a number of things. But basically what happens is the principal, which is the endowment itself, remains intact. And those funds are used by, generally they will have some professional financial advisor or advisor who will then invest the funds to produce some income in order for the income to be used. Charitable remainder trust is something that many of you may not necessarily be familiar with, but I'm just going to touch upon it because it is also, we're talking cash gifts. It's whereby what you do is you donate, you make a, you can donate property, and that can be tangible property, it can be real property. Generally it's an appreciating property, and the reason you do an appreciating can be stocks and bonds, because if you were to liquidate that property, whether it be real property, bonds, or otherwise, if you were to liquidate it now, you would be subject to capital gains tax. Whereas, for instance, if you make you donate it to the institution, and we're talking non-profit institution, we're not talking about to your aunt or your uncle. If you do it to a non-profit institution, they can then liquidate the asset and then use the asset, then invest the proceeds, and you can receive the proceeds, the income during your lifetime, or you can designate someone else to receive it, the income during your lifetime. And then at your death, then the principal of it is then given to the organization that has been administering the income. Now, it can be done in one of two ways. It can be done, one is a charitable annuity, which is that one is done by a percentage. A certain percentage of the principal is distributed. And then there's also a unit trust where there's a specific amount that is designated. So there's a couple other little things to go, with these things. But this is I'm just giving you the general idea about what's involved in it. Then of course you can make, during your life, you can make a lifetime gift to a institution, whether it be your artwork. Now, one of the things that is very crucial in terms of making a gift is that you're generally going to have an appraisal, all right? And I'm sure Alva will be talking about that when she comes up. And one of the things that I've given you is I've given you a collection inventory sheet. And you're free to make as many copies of this as you like. If you really get organized, you can just use this as a guideline for the pieces that are in your collection. Because chances are you know more about your collection than anyone else on earth, right? So if you complete this, then for instance, when it comes time for Alva to come and make an appraisal, or if you're making a gift to someone, or at your death when it's to be disposed of, then whoever is in charge of your estate will be in a better position to know what this piece represents, when you got it, where you got it, who is the best person to take to get an evaluation of it, who is the best gallery to market it, to sell it, and for instance, if it has any provenance in the sense that it's been exhibited anywhere. Okay? So all of those things are very, very important. And as I said, you are the person that know more about that than anyone else. So I wanted to make that clear. And that's part of me moving right into my the attorney role. Now, one of the things that I, as an attorney, does is I do help a client prepare proposal attorneys. I help them do the will, the trust, and as a part of that, it helps a lot. For instance, if you've already done the inventory, you already have the an appraisal of your work. So then I can look at it and determine what is the size of your estate and what tax consequences might be involved in the administering of your estate. The other thing that I always say to people, now they may have some particular loved one that they want to be the personal representative of their estate, or they may have someone that they want to be the trustee of their trust, or they may have someone in mind that they want to be the attorney in fact for their powers of attorney. I mean, that's what we call your agent or the principal or the agent for your power of attorney. We call it attorney in fact. And that person may very well know how to deal with your property. They may know how to very well deal with the management of your investments. And then the person for your health care, they may very well know what your desires are with regard to the kind of health care you want in terms of dealing with the doctors. But going back to the power of attorney for finance, I often sometimes say if a person has an art collection or something like that, then they might want to designate an individual who will be their art administrator. This is the person who will know more about in terms of what happens with the art. Because this may not be the person who knows about your personal affairs, but they certainly know about your art or how to, or at least the art that you have in terms of what to do with it or how to administer it. And of course, you want to have that power of attorney. In that power of attorney, we want to have provisions giving them the authority to act on your behalf. The same thing applies with when we do a will or a trust. We may have a trustee, we may have a personal representative, but then if a person has a substantial art collection or something, I will also may designate a person who will be responsible for dealing with the art. So these are very important, and not only that, but you want to think about the primary person, also think about an alternate, and when you think about who the person's going to be, because I say, oftentimes, people die out of turn. So you can't just depend upon it naming one person. You want to make sure that you have an alternate person in case something, that person either predecease you or become incompetent or refuse that they don't know at that particular time, they may not be in a position to do so. It's also very important for you to have a discussion with people that you want to become responsible for your affairs, whether it be in the power of attorney, whether it be the personal representative, whether it be the trustee. You don't want this to be a surprise to the person, at that moment when you become incapacitated or at your passing, and then like, oh, I didn't know she wanted me to do this, or I didn't know he wanted me to do that. I really don't want to take on that, or whatever. So you want to be very clear that the person is interested and prepared to take on that role. And in some instances, you can also provide for compensation for the person. So that's something also that you want to consider doing. I'm trying to really stick to the time that I have. I also can recommend to people, if you have the means, first of all, to do the inventory as I've outlined here, giving you some guidelines for doing that. And then if you have a catalog of your works, that's even better. And then I suggest people, a lot of people now, they have these programs out now that you can put labels on the back of your works that are barcoded. And so basically, when it comes time to move it out, all they have to do is run the wand against the, the barcode, and the stuff immediately goes on the computer, and whatever with all the information about this particular piece. So that is very important. And not only that, for instance, when you go to have your pieces insured, insurance companies are very impressed by the organization that you have with regard to your collection. So that will certainly, you may not have quite as much of a problem when Alva presents her appraisal, and then when they see that you have all of your other things in order in terms of acknowledging the values that you have designated. Last but not least, I want to just share with you, if in fact you make a gift of a non-cash item during your life, one of the things you want to do is make sure that whoever your tax preparer is prepares a non-cash charitable contribution form, which is Form 8283. Okay, and it has some information there which require, and I'm sure Alva has copies for you. See, she's on it. And we're sort of wetted at the hip, All right? But anyway, that is very, very important, because a number of times people, just think they can sort of do some of these things willy-nilly. So I encourage you to, and then another thing too, if in fact you have a desire to leave some art a part of your collection, I strongly recommend that you have a conversation with the intended institution to find out if they're really interested in having what you want to give them, okay? Because they may not always be, you may feel very passionate about it, but when it comes down to, the rubber meeting the road, a lot of them may not be interested in it. And the other thing and even if they are interested in it, unless it's something really rare or whatever, because you have to understand, they have to then take on the liability of whatever you're giving them. Because then they now have to care for it, they have to store it, they have to insure it, they have to do all those things. So it becomes a lot. So what do they want when you give them stuff? They want money. So they, generally, if you are giving them a large contribution to go along with the pieces that then they might be more inclined to take it. A lot of people say, well, I want to keep my collection together. And, wherever it goes, I want it to be together. Well, you have to, I think once you start having these conversations with these institutions, you realize that that's not quite as easily done as you may think. And so you want to take that in consideration, just find out to what extent they are interested in what you have, and to work out something. You might even work out something whereby you give a portion of it, and some of it is actually purchased by the institution, so therefore you can use that cash for your loved ones. Okay? That's what I have to say. I do okay?